What is love? WreckTalk, he told you. Bill Belichick would suck. And he does. Damn, he is real bad. Blue Chew Bill, dressing up like the skipper, mermaids, and doing dumb shit, and Jordan's in a cult called Twin Flames. Anyways, what's going on, everyone? We just completed week 4 of the college football season. You know what time that makes it? That was a weird sentence, but you know what I'm talking about. It's time to rank some ACC teams again. Quickly, we'll look at how we had them ranked last week. Miami at the top, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Cal. Got a lot to talk about with you. Cal, you got some splaining to do. Louisville, Clemson. Can we drop Clemson enough this week? I don't know if we can. NC State, they took a big fat L. Virginia, SMU, another team that took an L. Pitt, Syracuse, Duke, Stanford, Boston College, Wake, and in the Blue Chew Bill tier, North Carolina and Virginia Tech. So we'll reset here, and we will get to it. Now, let's rename our shit tier here, the Blue Chew. You know what? We'll call it Twin Flame. We'll call it Twin Flame this week. If you don't know what that is, go look at what Twin Flame is. Pretty sure Jordan is a part of it. Explains a lot, doesn't it? All right, we'll go through the games in the order that they appear on ESPN here. Florida at Miami. I was listening to Miami Flow, Rock and Rant, their show tonight, and I super chatted them and said if Florida had a pube hair of offense, they would probably be a top 15 team. Isn't Napier supposed to be an offensive guy? Either way, Miami looks like one of the most complete teams in the country. That game was close going into the third. I guess, what was it, 13-7? However, Florida, they only scored 7 points, and it came in the third quarter. Billy Napier is going to be fired this year. Florida's awful because their offense is awful. But, look, Carson Beck only threw for 160 yards and a pick in that game, by the way. 17-30. Probably definitely the worst game he's had at Miami. One of the worst games he's had, period. But Miami, a good team. Florida threw Lagway threw 5 picks against LSU last week, and still they only lost by like 10 points. Florida's defense is legit. One of the best in the country. They just can't get over that offense. Miami's not dropping until they do something really, really dumb or they lose. Now, don't they have Florida State coming up this week? No, I think that's week 6. Let's go back here. Either way, speaking of Florida State wins again. They win by a bunch. They're undefeated. They're a top 10 team. I'm going to keep them as the second best team in the conference. I'm not going to bump them up. If they either beat Miami or they lose by a margin of 3 or less, we'll bump them up. We got to see them get tested. And Florida State fans are trying to pretend like they weren't insufferable, ignorant, stupid POSs for the past 2 years, basically. They're trying to make you forget that they said, hey, look, there's our merchandise is in Wichita. You can buy it in Wichita. Look how great we are. Look at us stream Perry Mason episodes and say that means something. I will hate Florida State until the day I die and their entire fan base. The minute that they beat Alabama, one of their moronic, idiotic fans has start commenting on months-old, years-old videos. Look, see, we were right. We told you. We knew this all along. I don't think magically Castellanos is the world's greatest quarterback, though they will tell you that. In fact, let's just look at their remaining schedule. They've got Virginia this week, who Virginia looks like a much better team than we thought. In fact, someone who's a part of Rock and Rant Show, who's a Miami guy, the General, had them as the 4th best team in the ACC. I don't think they're that, but they're definitely better than I thought they were. And I think that's one of Pete's locks of the week. I think he's taking the points and Virginia. And that game's in Virginia. I think that's going to be a closer game than people think. Either way, we'll keep Florida State at number 2 there. Temple at Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech's undefeated. They beat Colorado. They beat Gardner-Webb. They beat Temple, and then they, rushed the field beating Clemson last week, which makes me feel like kind of an idiot now, looking at how Clemson is. Makes you wonder, how good is Georgia Tech really? They don't have a big win yet, or a win over a team that you would say is any good. Colorado's not any good. Clemson's definitely not any good. And their schedule stacks up to where they're probably not going to be tested. Duke, is Duke a test? Virginia, they got Duke, Virginia Tech. Basically, they don't play Louisville, they don't play Miami, they don't play Florida State. As long as they take care of business, they should be looking pretty. But turnovers again this week for Georgia Tech. Penalties again. They get shut out in the what was it, second quarter of this game? Second quarter of this game. This is a thing with Georgia Tech that has me worried. They just stagnate offensively for no reason, penalty after penalty, and that's not going to work against better teams. But either way, I think you still got to have them as the third best team in the conference up to this point, even though I'm not as high on them maybe as other people are. Syracuse beat the dog shit out of Clemson, and there's a lot of different things coming out of this game, like Dabo pretending like he didn't take a big steamy shit on his entire administration, donor base, and fan base, and that post-game press conference. Dabo deserves every bit of shit that's thrown into a ceiling fan and raining down on him right now. What was he do? Press conferences on Tuesdays. That'll be a load of fun. Syracuse gets fined $25,000 for faking injuries, which Cade Klubnik brought up in his post-game press conference, which is a bad look. Whether, if Syracuse had not done that, would they have lost the game? No. No, they wouldn't have. Now, I will give props to Fran Brown and Syracuse. I don't think anyone thought outside of Syracuse, New York, that Syracuse would be looking as good as they have. Unfortunately, their quarterback goes down with what appears to be an Achilles. I don't know, but someone can tell me in the comments if that has been confirmed. That hits me right in the stomach. A guy that was top 3 nationally in passing yardage, looking really good, probably out for the season. In fact, I think in the press conference, Fran Brown said he would basically be a graduate assistant for the next 9 months. Awful. But they dominated Clemson. Clemson is in a downward spiral that is going to be hard to pull out of. But like I said, I will give props to Fran Brown. I think Fran Brown's a really good coach. One of the best coaches in the ACC. Also says and does stupid shit, though. Says and does dumb stuff. Both things can be true. Like the fake outrage, the pageantry, even like the little bit of shady stuff, like none of that is why Syracuse is winning. So I don't know why you have to do it. That being said, dude's doing a good job at Syracuse. Where do we put Syracuse right now? I'd say they're an above average Power 4 team. They've played like it. They did get ran by Tennessee. But as down as Clemson is, that is a massive win for Syracuse. And again, makes you think, how good is Georgia Tech really, that it took Georgia Tech everything they had in Atlanta to beat Clemson. Syracuse went to Death Valley, walked a mud hole on their ass, and walked it dry. So shout out to the fruit there. Clemson, they're going in twin flame. They're going in twin flame right now, because it's not just that their only win is against Troy, which is a group of 5 school, and it was a struggle win. All right, it's not just that that's their only win. It's that Dabo created a bunch of BS that wasn't needed. And I don't think this is going to get any better. Your quarterbacks, talking about faking injuries. Dabo cried after the game. Just bad. They're going in twin flame. Virginia Tech host Wofford, beat them 38-6. Honestly, with everything that's going on right now, interim coach, Wofford is definitely a nobody. Wofford is 0-4. But you got to get wins where you can get them. Drones, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not a lot to say about Virginia Tech right now. We'll pull them just to a bad Power 4 team. What is Virginia Tech right now? That's their only win this year. That's Virginia Tech's only win this year. It's going to be bad for Virginia Tech. Who do they got going out? What will Virginia Tech's record be? They've got at NC State next week. They've got Wake Forest, at Georgia Tech. They could lose all of those games. Maybe they beat Wake Forest. Cal, we'll talk about Cal. You think that Cal's got a good shot at beating them. Louisville should beat them. Florida State will beat the brakes off of them. Miami will score as many points as they want against them. At Virginia could be a loss too. If they made a bowl this year, it would be an absolute miracle. Who do we talk about next? Who's next on our list? SMU drops another loss. SMU 2-2 on the year. SMU, more difficult schedule and just seems to be playing worse. They lose 35-24 on the road to TCU. I think TCU is undefeated right now. I think TCU is a good team right now. The old Horny Frogs, the Christian Horny Frogs. SMU's defense seems like dog shit, though, doesn't it? J. Edgar Hoover, whoever's playing quarterback for TCU, 379 yards, 5 touchdowns. SMU might be decent on offense, but you're not going to win a lot of football games. How many they gave up? Over 40 to Baylor, who's not a great team. SMU is an average team at best, and I might be being generous with some recency bias and saying that they're average. They're definitely worse than everyone I have above them, and I think they're better than Clemson right now. I think if Clemson played SMU in Dallas, I think SMU would be favored right now. Louisville hosts the bane of my existence, Bowling Green, and takes care of them 40-17. Now, Louisville did struggle against James Madison a few weeks ago, who's a good Group of 5 team on a Friday night game. But they take care of Bowling Green. Miller Moss, 316 yards, no touchdowns, 23 of 32. I definitely think LSU is this is going to be weird, putting them behind a team that has a loss. I think Syracuse would beat them. Here's the thing, though. Syracuse's starting quarterbacks went down, but their backup didn't miss a beat when he came in against Clemson. Man, this is tough. This is tough. But I'm going to give Fran the nod here. I'm going to put him behind Syracuse for now. Maybe we'll change it later, but let's move on. North Carolina at Central, if you listen to Bill. I tried to how sad is it that I've been more right about North Carolina football to a T? There's not a single thing in the past 2 or 3 years that I've said about North Carolina that hasn't been the God's own truth. That hasn't been 100% correct. By the way, is it any mystery that Collins goes to South Carolina, who was on an upward trajectory and now is struggling to win a game? I think not. Bill Belichick is the worst coach, not only in the ACC. Bill Belichick's a worse coach than Brent Pry that just got fired. And that's not even trolling. That's a fact. My dad leaned in over to me and said this when I was at the Temple game last week. He said, North Carolina could have hired Fran Brown for a third of what they're paying Bill Belichick. They're paying Bill Belichick $10 million a year and been in an infinitely better position. I said, you know what, though, Dad? They could have hired any other coach for a third of what they're paying Bill Belichick and been in an infinitely better position. They get beat 34-9. I didn't watch the game. I'm assuming they didn't score a single touchdown, though. I'm assuming that the 6 points in the third quarter wasn't from scoring a touchdown and missing an extra point or missing a go-for-two opportunity. Again, not trash talking, not trolling the North Carolina fan base. You are the worst team in the conference. and you are probably the worst Power 4 team in the country. Tell me some Power 4 teams that are worse than North Carolina. That if your life depended on it and they played each other, you would pick North Carolina to win. Every time before the game, Jordan comes up to Bill to ask for concession money. I think before all is said and done, North Carolina will try and get out of this contract and use the Jordan Hudson nonsense to fire him for cause and not pay him. That's how bad things are at North Carolina. Moving on. By the way, before we move on, didn't Scott Frost, isn't that the coach for Central Florida, say, yeah, we took offense to the Central thing? Duke bounces back against NC State, 45-33. Now, I was high on Bailey for NC State in the preseason. How many picks did this cat throw? Three interceptions. That's probably a big difference in the game right there. NC State, here's the confusing thing with Duke. Their defense has been awful this year. They get beat by Tulane last week. They get drugged by Illinois the week before, who got the ever-loving soul ripped right out of their body like a Dementor was there by Indiana. NC State had 535 yards of offense. Now, I forget what the exact number was. On a member stream, I was looking up how many yards does the average team gain before they have a point? Like, what is the ratio to yardage to points scored? I think it's like 8 on average for every 18 yards you're expecting to score at least a point. That's average. That's the 50 percentile mark, just to kind of give you an idea. But you'd think 535 yards, you'd win the game. 33 points, you're probably even expecting to win the game. Duke, they outgained Duke by over 100 yards and lost by 12 points. Duke ran for 149 yards, threw for 269. The turnovers were the difference. Duke had over 103 yards in penalties in this game. So I don't think Duke is at best average. NC State takes their first loss, but my God, I got to put them behind Duke right now. And I know Duke has lost more games, but they have the same number of Well, no, Duke's undefeated in the ACC, actually. This was Duke's first ACC game. They lost to Tulane. They lost to Illinois. That'll make Pigskin Pete happy. Boy, he hates Dave Dorn and NC State. Stanford at Virginia. Virginia beats the brakes off Stanford, 48-20. Morris, 380 yards for Virginia, 4 touchdowns. I'm telling you, Virginia, hell, they scored 21 points in the first quarter. I think the general was on to something. I think their average, we'll put them right behind SMU. We'll put Virginia right behind SMU. I got my eyes on you, Virginia. I see what you're doing, Tony Elliott. Cal. No ACC losses. Let me tell you something. We're dropping you all the way to the bottom of average, and you're lucky I don't put you in the bad tier. You got shut out by San Diego State. Just the minute we start reaping praises to Cal, they go and do this. 34-0 by San Diego State. Does San Diego State, is their head coach the guy that used to be the OC at Colorado? That makes sense, I guess. Sakapalooty Poo-Poo, the quarterback for Cal, 208 yards, 17-38, 2 interceptions. In fact, who did San Diego State lose to? Who did they lose to? They lost to Washington State, 36-13. They got walked by a team that got left out of the Pac-12. What are you doing, Cal? What are you doing? Were the rest of these teams on byes? Really? Guess they were. All right, where do we put BC? Well, BC lost to Stanford, so they got to be bad. Stanford's got to be better than them. I think they're both better than Virginia Tech, though, aren't they? All right. Pitt. We'll put Pitt there for now. Wake. They tried to beat NC State. They got to go here. All right. I think that makes sense. If I didn't say it already, screw Bill Belichick. He's an embarrassment. But here's our list. We got Miami. I think that's clearly number 1. Florida State 2. Georgia Tech 3. I think those are pretty indisputed. Syracuse and Louisville could swap places probably in most people's eyes, especially with Syracuse quarterback going down. Had Angeli not gone down, I think the clear top 4 are Miami, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse. And I think you could put Syracuse above Georgia Tech. In fact, if Angeli was healthy, I might put Syracuse above Georgia Tech. Just saying. Common opponent, and they wipe the floor with them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, we got SMU. 7, Virginia. 8, Duke. 9, NC State. 10, Pitt. 11, Cal. And that'll probably make Cal fans mad, but my God, you got shut out. Then we got Stanford, Boston College, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Clemson. And I don't even think it's disputable. Does anyone not think North Carolina's the worst team in the conference? They can't score a touchdown in a game. Yeah. So anyways, you guys have a good one. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you agree with? What don't you agree with? Also coming up, we've got Wednesday, the Carl the Coin show. I'll give you a little hint. Pete did not beat the coin. If you don't know, I'm flipping a coin versus Pete's picks. The coin didn't lose. We'll be doing a show every Wednesday. And this week, I actually have my 5-year-old daughter making picks on Pete's picks. I say, hey, what mascot do you like the best? And we're going to say that's the side of the bet that she's taking, or that's the side of the line she's taking. So again, be looking out for that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Y'all have a good one.